Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Send It Exactly Like This. As part of my job working in complaints, I write letters to customers. We don't use templates and each letter is tailored to the individual. Sometimes customers raise multiple complaint points and each point is carefully addressed in the letter we send. We outline everything the customer is unhappy with, our full investigation and what we are doing to put this right. Or alternatively explaining carefully why their complaint is not justified. A new manager, Steve, was hired a few months ago and he decided that we were wasting too much time writing letters and he was going to come up with a template for us to use as we were obviously too simple to understand how letters are meant to work. So he goes off and drafts a template and proudly shares it with us all. It was crap, to put it bluntly. It was full of typos and grammatical errors. But it also did not contain details of what the complaint was about or how we had resolved it. Of course, this was pointed out to him in full why this was not appropriate and why it would lead to more complaints, and it's basically terrible customer service. He lost his temper, screamed and yelled until 3 separate people cried and 2 logged out of the virtual meeting. Afterwards he sent an email saying he wants his letter used exactly as he has attached it. Who am I to argue? I sent the letters exactly as he had written them, copied and pasted to ensure nothing was changed, exactly as he asked. Right down to his signature and contact details at the bottom of the letter. I told the rest of the team and they all are sending letters with Steve's details too. Within the first week he had 40 customers call him and email complaining about the letter we had sent. The week after, 50 irate customers. Steve hasn't looked into the complaint, so he doesn't know how to address any of the customers or understand their issues. So I get phone calls day in and day out, this man is livid, what was his complaint about? Each time I reply, oh, it should all be explained in the letter I sent. You know, the one detailing all complaint points, my investigation and resolution in full. I would just check that. Bye. The whole department is now under investigation as customer satisfaction has tanked. Best bit is each and every dissatisfaction is scored against Steve. Every other member of staff has 100% satisfaction as nothing is logged against us, our name isn't on the letter. Steve is on 0%. It's a terrible shame. Edit. Hopefully Steve will get fired soon. We work in complaints, we're pretty thick-skinned. To make 3 staff actually cry takes some serious work. He's vile. I will provide an update if management ever get their act together enough to listen to our concerns. I do feel bad for the customers involved though. The customers that are complaining about the letter don't know that their complaint is upheld and that I've sent them compensation or flowers. They would normally get a letter apologizing, deeply explaining what went wrong and how we will resolve it going forward. Those customers are normally absolute dreams. The only time they come back to us is thank us. I have never in all my days sent someone a check and a nice letter and had them phoning to yell at me. Poor deluded Steve. Next one is titled, A Client's Driveway is Too Small for My Truck to Make a Delivery. I'm a truck driver for a secure valuables transport company. Job description includes being an armed guard and extremely observant. Now, one client, C, has a delivery to a different address than normal, so the driveway is too small and narrow for me to back in my rig and 53 feet trailer. C insists I back in after I tell them that my truck won't fit. After a lot of back and forth I get frustrated, so I do exactly as they ask. So, in backing up into the delivery area, doing the turn to fit, my truck tears up their extremely expensive looking lawn, smashes bushes, breaks their mailbox and rips up the grass and flowers. During unloading, C is visually very angry and tried to give it to me. As a big dude and armed at that, I probably had intimidation on my side. So, I put on the murder stare and calmly say, "Sir, you explicitly told me to back into this dock clearly meant for smaller trucks." C has since demolished and rebuilt their complex to accommodate larger trucks. Next one is titled, Worst Kind of Malicious Compliance. This is my only story of malicious compliance. I didn't perform it, but the home my dad was in did. My dad had a dementia which left him essentially a vegetable. But before he was bedridden, they would put him in his wheelchair and bring him to the dining area, outside to get some fresh air, etc. He actually enjoyed these little trips. He could hardly talk at this point, and knew who we were, but couldn't really do anything. Seeing him smile in the fresh air was great. Anyway, that is not the point of this story. Anyway, sometimes he would lean forward and almost fall out of his chair. We told the nurses and staff that he needed to be seat belted in, so that he wouldn't fall. They said no because Ontario guidelines at the time were that a patient could not be strapped into anything unless they fall out and injure themselves. Their reasoning was that families had sued previously for cruelty to patients by strapping them in. We said that was ridiculous and he needs to be seat belted in. They once again said no. We went to the top of the home. Same thing. Anyway, we come in one day and he is strapped in, has a broken nose, cheekbone and stitches over his eye. He fell out of his chair and the staff of the home just bluntly said that now he can be strapped in. We gave the home hell and they said they were just following guidelines. Worst part was my dad was in a lot of pain and didn't really understand why. Didn't know why his face hurt, why he couldn't breathe the same. It was heartbreaking to see him like a child because the home wouldn't do the right thing from the beginning, sitting compliance of a stupid rule. This place followed the guidelines to the point of zealotry at the cost of actual compassionate care. Yet because they followed the rules too closely, they were never at fault. That place still is running today. Next one is titled, Braggart Cousin Throws a Tantrum. This happened when I was 14. A cousin of mine, 12 at the time, was staying with us for the weekend. He was always a bit of a spoiled brat. Saturday night, my dad decided to take us to the cinema in this big mall. We have time to grab some dinner at the food court, and my cousin is like, let's go to Burger King, I love it, it's the best. Okay, we go to Burger King. It's our turn, and my dad asks what we want. I say I want a Whopper, and my cousin says he wants 2 Whoppers. Dad is like, come on, 1 is enough, and that's when cousin starts throwing a bit of a tantrum in front of the poor cashier. I remember he said things like, but my dad always gets me 2 Whoppers, I'll starve if I only get 1, etc. My dad says, listen, if you get 2, you'll only eat 1, and then we will have to throw the other 1 away, because they won't let us bring it into the cinema. Cousin swears that won't happen, he could even eat 3 of them if needed. Dad says, okay, if you're so sure, I'll get you 2, but you have to eat everything. Cousin is happy and proud. I guess for him at that time, he was proving he was better than his big cousin or something. So he eats his first Whopper, and I guess that's when he realized what he had got himself into. I'll never forget how slowly he started chewing, resting his head on his arm. After a bit, my dad said he didn't have to finish it, but he was determined to save face. He literally pushed the last bite into his mouth with his finger. It's something we still make fun of him sometimes, and looked at us triumphantly, as if the whole thing hadn't been clearly painful. We head towards the cinema. Cousin is silent the whole time. Just past the ticket inspection, my dad notices cousin doesn't look too good. Are you okay? Before he can answer, he doubles over and pukes his heart out. Some poor employee had to mop it up. Dad apologized to everyone, took a now very silent cousin to the restroom, and in the end we still watched the movie. My mum was later giving Dad a hard time, saying he should have never given a 12-year-old 2 big burgers, but I still think he did the right thing. This kind of stuff builds character. Or maybe just trauma. What do you folks think? P's cousin turned out okay, he's a great responsible adult. Next one is titled, See Diff Stool Sample on Solid Stools? Enjoy the surprise. I see you nurse here. This happened a couple years ago. It's a small MC and it's healthcare related, but I wanted to share it anyway. A patient had a digestive tract surgery the week before and was progressing through his normal post-operative schedule to get back home. He had frequent but solid stools, which is uncommon but not unheard of. Patients going through that type of surgery start with a liquid diet, are under IV antibiotics and IV feeding, so they rarely have solid stools. The surgeon asked for a C. diff sample. The thing is, patients infected with C. diff have liquid stools 99% of the time, and ask a nurse of your choosing, it has that particular smell that you instantly recognize. We let that RX slide, knowing the lab would reject the sample, and notified the surgeon about it. He prescribed the same sample 2 more times that day despite the nursing team warning him. He even highlighted it in the RX sheets. I was the nurse in charge of that patient that night. Cue the MC. I warn the patient to let me know when he's going for the number 2. Sure thing, it happened while I was on my shift. I grabbed the stool sample bottle, which can contain around 50 milliliters, approximately 1.7 fluid ounces, and make my way to the room. The screwing top of that bottle has an integrated spoon which you can gather stools with. I cut the stool with the spoon so I get to fill the bottle to the brim with solid stools. I twist the top back in and you guessed it, unscrewing it would result in having a feces popsicle holding on the spoon. I happily send it back to the lab with a mention to carbon copy the results directly to the surgeon's office. Sure enough, the sample came back as test cancelled, solid stools, and when said surgeon got back on the department, I asked him if he knew about the cancellation. Narrator, he did. He went to the lab and handed him a printed copy of the results while smirking like a madman. Next one is titled, You've Taken Too Much Sick Leave. So a buddy of mine works at a casino, and this casino has a system going where they monitor your sick days, and if they think you're developing pattern sick leave, they write you up for it and watch you like a damn hawk. Of course, 99.99% of the time, pattern sick leave is about as accurate as a baccarat pattern, but the management is firm on it, so most of the workers just deal with it. Like my friend, we'll call him Steve because it always seems like a Steve does the wacky things. Steve recently took time off cause he was, surprise surprise, sick. Well, the casino took exception to that. The fact that Steve kept taking sick leave around his rostered days off meant that he was clearly just trying to have a longer time off and not because he was sick, never mind that Steve provided the doctor certificates and everything. So Steve gets called to a meeting, where they explain to him that they're now watching him, and that he can't take any more sick leaves or it's going on official record that he's chucking a sickie. Steve says okay, dumb as duck, but whatever. One day, about 2 weeks past this meeting, Steve gets extremely sick. Vomiting, diarrhea, fever, whatever makes a bad day worse, he got it. Steve thinks about calling in sick, but Steve turns up to work, completely dead on his feet. The pit manager initially takes no notice. It's shift swap over time for his dealers and it's very, very busy. Later though, as he wanders around his pit, he notices Steve, who's look more than slightly off kilter and much, much paler than even the whitest of his Irish ancestors. The conversation apparently went something like this: Steve, dude, you look sick, do you need to go home? Nah, I've been written up for pattern sick leave, can't take any more. Steve, mate, you look sick, you sound sick, you need to go home. But I can't, I've been warned about taking any more sick leave. Steve, bro. Etc. and etc. Eventually, the pit manager has to call the floor manager down, to make sure that it's on official record that Steve is legitimately sick and won't be reprimanded because he took more sick leave. Steve's still pretty proud of himself for that one. Edit, this is an Australian casino. We have universal healthcare, so employers abuse the hell out of it by making us get doctor certificates. Floor manager is an extremely important guy, way more important than the pit manager. They're also the ones who have the power to null the sick leave watching. I wish Steve did vomit over the table, but I do know someone who actually did on a roulette table. Double edit, the casino roster is a cycling RDO1, every week your days off would be different. Also to the people who are saying, dude, I haven't been sick in 4 years therefore Steve is crying wolf, good for you. The duck, do you know about Steve's health? Triple edit, not the Crown, but it's really interesting how they also have this policy 030. Next one is titled, I just go where you schedule me. At my old job I worked a post position. Basically this means I show up there and don't leave that spot until my time is over. The posts were also manned 24/7. Meaning you don't leave until someone comes to relieve you. I was basically a receptionist. My bosses were all about this phone app that would tell you your schedule. Whatever post you worked would be scheduled through that phone app, essentially you went where the app tells you. If you don't, it is a write-up. That is stressed very heavily. I got to be known as a bit of a tech guru. I am not IT though, so my boss decided to tell me on a Monday that instead of my usual poster I'll be working a different spot, post B, on Tuesday to fix the computer there. Tuesday morning rolls around and I notice I am not scheduled through the app to go to post B, I am still scheduled post A, so I go to post A and relieve the person there. 40 minutes pass and I get a call from my boss asking why I didn't go to post B. Me, well sir, I was still scheduled poster through phone app. Boss, but we told you yesterday to go to post B. Other employee hasn't been relieved from their shift for 40 minutes because of this. Me, yes sir, but since you didn't change my schedule through phone app, I wasn't sure where to go, so I just figured to comply to the rules about scheduling laid out in the employee handbook. Boss, sigh, alright. We will send someone to relieve you. Can you still fix the computer today? Me, yes sir. I did not get written up, and I think my boss felt embarrassed about the whole thing. The whole incident ended up costing him around an hour and a half of overtime. Next one is titled, So the Other Workers Get Extra Breaks Because of a Bad Habit? Guess I do too. So full disclosure, this is actually a story of an ex-girlfriend of mine. She was working at a very well-known party supply chain. Everyone shared responsibilities. Sometimes you worked the floor, sometimes you did the stocking, and sometimes you worked the cash registers. If you were on the floor or stocking shelves and you saw a line develop, you were supposed to stop what you were doing and open up a register. Well, what she found was that when it got busy, the smokers would suddenly step outside to take a 15-minute smoke break. In fact, any time that work seems to be piling up, the smokers would magically disappear outside. Eventually the non-smokers got pretty tired of this. They were doing double the work for about 45 minutes to an hour per 8-hour shift for the same rate of pay. The smokers would get their 30-minute lunch break in addition to anywhere between 2 and 4 15-minute smoke breaks, all occurring at the busiest times of the shift. She went to complain to the manager, who quickly said that it was perfectly fine for these members to take smoke breaks. When she said that she was going to take extra breaks as well, the manager immediately told her that she could not. That she could only have her 30-minute lunch break. So what did she start doing? Each day she would bum a cigarette or two from a coworker. Or even buy a pack herself. And at random points in the day, she would step outside the store, light the cigarette and then proceed to just let it burn out. Never once taking a puff. Eventually the smoker informed the manager. And the manager caught her outside and immediately demanded that she go back to work. She simply stated that she was on her smoke break. To which the manager said, "You are not smoking, get back to work now." Well, she then informed the general manager, who immediately saw that this was completely unfair and abolished all smoke breaks. She left that terrible store soon afterward, but not before that rule stood on the books permanently. Smoke breaks were to occur before or after your shift or during your lunch break. And last she heard, after great protest from both smokers and non-smokers, they instituted one 15-minute break during your shift not attached to your lunch break as well. Justice served. Next one is titled, Alright, I'll let your subscription expire instead of notifying you to renew it. I work as a bookkeeper for my local newspaper, and also help out with customer service issues when it's slow. As a courtesy, we ask our carriers to leave a notification with a customer's paper if it's about to stop for non-payment. So a few months ago, I get a call from an elderly woman who is absolutely furious with how unprofessional and how could we have the audacity to tell her we need payment in the form of a note on her paper. For clarification, it's not like the notes we leave are handwritten. We have them printed out with the company header on them. It's simply an easy way for us to inform customers to renew their subscriptions, and 99% of people have no issue with them. Anyways, this woman goes off on me, telling me how she's been a subscriber for 20 years and doesn't deserve to be treated like this. She insists she always pays on time and doesn't need to be reminded like a child. I know this isn't true, as I can clearly see on her account she is a few days late almost every time she is up for renewal. The woman orders me to stop sending her these goddamn notes, so I tell her I'll let the carrier know, and she hangs up. I go ahead and inform the carrier to never leave her a reminder note again. Sure enough, the lady called back a few days ago furious that we stopped her paper for non-payment. She yells for a solid few minutes, while I listen and feign concern. Fed up, she demands to speak with someone else. Before I pass her off, I calmly remind her this is what she requested, and that I can have the carrier start leaving her notes again if she would like. There are a few moments of silence, then I hear, "Whatever," just changes it back, and the phone clicks off. Last one is titled, It's 7:01 and my employees aren't here yet. The office manager complained to the owner that 2 of my employees were always punching in at 7.1, 7.3, 7.4, etc. am, when they're supposed to be here at 7.0. I had been letting it slide, because the guys always get their hours, but the owner wants to make sure we look like a real business and not a bunch of slackers, so he told me to get the guys to arrive on time. Those times above are weird because of the electronic time clock system we use. It counts in the tenths of an hour, and it rounds down, so if you arrive at 7:06, that's 7.1, leave at 3:59, that's 3.9, walk in at 7:05, that's 7.0. I don't know why it works this way, the office manager set it up, and so that's how it works. So, I had a private meeting with both guys, explained that they need to start getting here on time. The practical reasons is sometimes we have customers at the door at 7 to pick up their stuff, and I can't be the only one helping customers, and the phone needs to be answered right when the shop opens too. So, it's 7:01, and neither of the guys will be here yet, whereas before, they'd be on time sometimes, but late others. Now every day they arrive somewhere between 7:02 and 7:04, and punch in so their time records show that they arrived every day at 7.0. I still don't care as long as they get their work done, but now the front office and the owners are happy, because they have perfect, on-time employees every day according to the time clock software. Thanks for listening.